Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to the 20th episode of the Local Gov Stories Podcast. I'm Melanie Santos Stefano. And before I go on, I will let you know that Danny Langloss is not with me today because he is on special assignment, but he will be back in January for our next episode after the new year. So, just as a reminder, this podcast was created for you, every single member of ILCMA. We are always looking for new individuals to interview. We want to share stories of how people enter the profession, how they dealt with challenges, how they are looking to bring in the next generation of leaders. Any stories that you feel could really benefit your colleagues. So, if you or someone you know would like to be on this podcast, I invite you to email ilcma@niu.edu and just put podcast in the subject line. So now we are just after Christmas and before New Year's. So there's that like week of kind of, it's almost just like a holding pattern week, right? Like we've got some time off. We've also had time to think, to reflect on the past year. And I know many of you, if not all of you, have been involved with strategic planning for 2026. I know we have. So it's been a really kind of reimagined time of looking back to the previous year. What did we do? What could we have done better? And then what do we have in the plans for 2026? So best of luck for everyone in all of this planning. So our two guests today, we have JD Barrett. He is the management analyst at the Village of Glen Ellen. He is just 6 months into his career, but already showing great signs of leadership. It's a great interview between him and Danny. So, JD is going to share really interesting insights about the next generation of individuals looking for careers, what they want, how that might differ from people of a certain age, like my age, mid 40s, early 50s, mid 50s, where it was a totally different setup when we all started looking at careers. And now things have changed. We're talking about hybrid and other hybrid where, there's time to work at home, potentially. Young people are looking for that. So JD really shares some great insights. We will also hear from Megan Golden. She's the Director of Administrative Services and the Deputy Administrator for South Elgin. And in addition to those roles, which sound enough, she's also the president of the Legacy Project. And in our Lightning 5 segment, which is coming up after the interview with JD, Megan will share the top 5 reasons to consider getting involved or joining the Legacy Project. So I will go ahead and we will get on to the interview between JD Barrett and Danny Langloss.
JD, thank you so much for joining us on the Local Gov Stories podcast.
Yes, happy to be here, Danny.
Man, so excited. We're going to dive into how to attract, how to motivate, how to retain our young talent in local government. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about where you're at and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm with the Village of Glen Ellen. I'm the management analyst for the administration department in Glen Ellen. And, what I do is why I love it. I do everything. I kind of have my hands in a little bit of everything in all the operations here in Glen Ellen. So, working with public works, working with police, working with community development, finance, IT, everything. So, it's always a great opportunity to learn here with the Village.
Awesome. And how long have you been with the village now?
Going on 6 months, so still pretty new. I have my training wheels. They're coming off soon, but yeah.
Well, what I think is really awesome is you're already part of the communications committee for ILCMA. That's
Yep.
where this idea came from. What a perfect topic. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah. So I'm part of the communications committee and then also the DEI committee as well with ILCMA. So, I've loved being involved with the association so far.
Very good. Very good. So, hey, let's dive right in here. What drew you to local government? What drew you to local government?
Yeah. So I've always been just like a curious, lifelong learner, and I always felt that local government, in particular, but local government, like you have such an opportunity to learn so many things, and I didn't really understand that until my sophomore year at Illinois Wesleyan University. I did a May term internship with the town of Normal in their planning department. It was just for 1 month, and what I did with them was I reviewed their recently adopted comprehensive plan, and I went to every department within the town, and I kind of like talk to the different department heads to see how they have progressed through the comprehensive plan. And it really kind of made me excited about local government because there were so many things that I've never understood goes on behind the scenes. So I was thirsty for more. I came back to the town of Normal the next summer as an admin intern, and I've been hooked ever since.
That is awesome. I love your energy. I can just feel like you got this opportunity, this experience. It kind of grabbed you. It drew you in. So when you're thinking about roles and you're thinking about your career, right? You're loving what
Hmm.
you're doing now.
Yep.
You love the taste you got, but for you and for the younger generation, for your friends, what matters most when they're thinking about a career and what they do?
Yeah. I think across all sectors, I think young professionals, and I graduated in a very weird time, Danny. I graduated college. I was in college from fall of 2019 to spring of 23.
Mm.
So, my freshman year was impacted by COVID substantially. I had one normal semester that fall of 2019, and then were sent home spring of 2020. And then I was pretty much, I like to call it Zoom University ever since. And so I think for folks my age in particular, there is so much uncertainty coming out of college, and just kind of being a part of an organization post college where you kind of felt stable and secure was I think a big priority for folks my age. And then, people who want to go into local government, they want to feel heard, and they want to be part of that conversation. So I think, that's a big part of why I chose the organization I chose, was because I wanted to be a part of the big picture. I wanted to be thrown in and be a part of everything, but also have that security and stability in mind.
So I'm hearing a couple things. And I want you to build on them. So I'm hearing purpose, like
Yep.
meaningful work,
Yeah.
belonging, like
Yep.
connection, being part of something bigger than yourself, but not just being on a great team, being part of what makes the team great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like young folks, and really just anybody in general, the last 5 years have been it's just been so crazy with uncertainty. And I think it reminds me of, we're on a floating rock.
Mm.
What are we here to do? What's the purpose? What's the meaning behind everything? And so that's particularly why I came into local government. It's like I want to be involved in the water. I want to be involved in trash pickup. I want to be involved in public safety and roads. And I think a lot of people, like my age, who are going to local government, they want to be a part of those tangible things, because at the end of the day, we just want to make the world better. And so, I think that's kind of my insight on that question.
So there's a couple things that your generation gets a knock on. And I don't necessarily agree with them, because I think when you hire people who are motivated as you are, the things you just described, if we're not getting it right on retention and motivation, shame on us, because culture is everything. But
Mhm.
but you have a situation. Some things I hear are, our younger generation, they don't want to work overtime. If the jobs
Mhm.
require more than the normal time, they're not
Yeah.
into that. I hear a lot about, we've got to adjust and make hybrid work, and some in the
Mhm.
office, some out of the office. How much of that is fact and how much of
Yeah.
that is stereotype?
I think it's a mixture in between. I don't think it has to be a negative thing. As I mentioned before, we grew up with Zoom, and we grew up when I was in college. We had Zoom. We didn't go to class, so to speak. We didn't walk to a classroom. We were in our dorms, good or bad, and taking classes that way. Work can be done, degrees can be done online. That's proven. It's proven that productivity is possible online. So, I think there is a misconception that, younger folks don't want to work, period. I think we just want to be able to have flexibility, because we know it's possible. We've experienced it.
Mm.
Whereas I feel like, other folks, older folks, they grew up in a time where you went in the office every day from 8 to 4, 5, what have you, and that's what you did. It doesn't have to be that way. And I think that we just kind of in local government in particular is always slow to kind of adjust with the times. I've learned that. I think that's just part of it. We're very risk averse in local government. But I think we just have to be able to embrace it because, like you were saying, Danny, young professionals, we have a lot of opportunities elsewhere. We can do private sector work, and a lot of private sector companies do have hybrid or flexible work. So if you do want to attract great talent, you have to be able to attract them with flexibility and getting in with the times. And I think I mentioned to you earlier, Danny, several weeks back. I'm 25. I have several friends that are around my age. We live downtown Chicago in the city, and they work in private sector roles, and they think I'm crazy for going into the office Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. They're like, "You do what?" I'm like, yeah, I mean that's what I love to do. It's my field, it's my profession. And they're like, oh my gosh, I roll out of bed at 9, I get my coffee, and then I am logged off by 5 p.m. and I'm enjoying my dinner or going whatever, and they just cannot fathom
Yeah.
going to work every day. So I mean that I think it is a mixture of both. To go back to your original question of if it's a stereotype, if there's truth.
Well, and I think that there's a reason there's so many different careers, so many different professions, so many different vocations. Everybody doesn't want
Right,
the same thing anyway.
right.
But what I do want to ask you is, I'm the city manager of Dixon, and I
Yeah,
want to ask you if you were the village manager of Glen Ellen, because I don't put you in that spot. But if you were the city manager of Dixon,
yeah.
what types of innovative front edge things would you do from a flexibility side or something else to attract, retain, and motivate young talent?
Yeah, I think if I were the village manager of Dixon, Illinois, or city manager or what have you, I think I would ensure that young folks have a voice in their work. I think local government, and it's part of the role. We're in the business of keeping the lights on and those core services, right? I think those things can exist while also having some passion projects that you're really passionate about. And I think if you want to really retain and attract young professionals who are purpose and mission driven, having some flexibility in the work, right? So I think, you could focus on core services. You could have a public works management analyst focus on, getting RFPs sent out, being the front desk, call person for customers, but maybe they're really interested in sustainability. Let them follow that. Let them lean into it. Likewise, if you're me, I'm an admin management analyst. I do have some things that I have to do every day, but we're doing our strategic plan. I love that. I love strategic planning and visioning. So, my leadership here is letting me take it and run with it. So if I was the city manager of Dixon, I would allow flexibility in the work. So that's one piece. And then of course there's the question about flexibility as in scheduling. I think, it's a trust. It's all about trust. That's what I've learned about in remote work. My partner works remote, and it's all about his manager is very big about trust. If you don't have that, you can't work remotely, but you can't even work in person either if you don't have that trust. So I think building that trust and that rapport with your employees is essential to having a great flexibility.
I love how you broke down flexibility in two ways, and I think that's really important. How we've always done things doesn't necessarily mean that's the best way to do them. And what I've found is when we turn people loose, when we let them dive into their passion projects, what we can learn is so big. And then if we don't have front-facing roles,
Right.
customer service roles, a position like yours really is, the ability to work remote. And we've done that in Dixon, some hybrid stuff, but it really depends on what the role is.
Right. And
Our public works team that's on the front lines doing potholes and mowing and all that stuff, like we got to have them here. But some other roles, there's some flexibility.
And that's the challenge. I mean, I think that's the challenge to find that fairness and kind of that middle ground in human resources, local government. It's how do you strike a balance between people who are maybe not exempt or and exempt employees. I think the world is going to more of a tech focused you know remote world. I think we need to be preparing our frontline staff to maybe take calls remotely or talk to residents remotely. I've heard, younger residents, not even younger. I don't want to, base it on age because there's people all on all ages who prefer to do things online. I know if I don't have to talk to somebody to do something, I'm not going to talk to somebody. I'm going to do it online. I pay my bills online. I grocery shop online. I know that's crazy to hear. But if I don't have to talk to somebody to get a piece of business done, I won't. And I do think the world is heading that way. So even paying a water bill or paying a fine, paying a citation, it's going towards more online. So why not equip our frontline workers with the tools and resources to do the job online? So that's kind of my thought process on, the difference between, non-exempt frontline. We have to be prepared to do that. Now, you had a great example of public works. I mean, you kind of have to be on the street. You can't fill a pothole online. I wish we could. Soon we will, I think. But it's all part of the challenge of local government.
Yeah, well, I think you gave a lot of good examples, and the thing about it, right? If we're here to serve our community, we've got to meet them where they're at, and we have plenty of people now that want to walk in and talk to somebody, but
Right.
things are changing and evolving, and our ability to meet them where they're at is really really a big deal. I want to ask you quick, what kind of leadership brings out the best in you?
The best kind of leadership, it's someone who can let me own my work but also can be a mentor, and provide guidance when necessary and when needed. I think young people, we don't want micromanagers per se. We want to be able to own our work and maybe, and I'll bet, fail a little bit. And I think some of my biggest, learning um, experiences have become from failure. I had bosses who allowed me to kind of fail with grace,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Nothing too crazy. Like no one's not going without water or anything, but making some of those mistakes, like owning a project and kind of talking about it later. So, the kind of leadership that allows me to own my work, make those graceful mistakes, and then like lead me along the way. I think it's what we want. I think local government managers and department heads, we strive for perfection oftentimes, but I think it's important to back it up, and we have to develop and nurture young professionals.
You know, more local government leaders need to hear that. It's so often, I see bosses
Hmm.
and leadership's really about meeting our people where they're at, understanding
Right,
what they need, creating the environment
right,
for them to succeed, not this is the way I want to do things and that's the way it's going to
right,
be. Because we're not
right.
going to keep our younger generation, and quite frankly, post COVID, we're not going to keep Generation X, the millennials. We're not going to keep them either.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think our adapting to that is really really important. The last question I want to ask you, as we're running out of time, and this is we could talk for a long long time here. I'm really enjoying this. Is
Good.
what is it for you or for your generation that can create longevity, that can say this is where I'm going to work for my career, where I could see myself for 20 or 25 years?
Having a plan in place, Danny, I think that's really big to me, and I think for other folks, like we want to see a plan for us,
Mhm.
and that was part of the reason why I chose my organization. Was from day one I had a plan. JD, if you meet these milestones, you can maybe propel up this way. Or JD, if you do X, Y, and Z, dangle that carrot in front of me. I will chase it. I will. And I think other people would too. So I think it's just important to have a plan in place, have a vision, and have that ongoing communication, with your employees, is that, we got a plan for you. Because no one wants to stay stagnant. And no one wants to just go into the job and think, oh my gosh, this is where I'm going to be for X amount of years. What will keep someone in an organization, what will keep me in an organization, is having a plan in place. I'm a planner. I'm a planner at heart. I have a 50-year plan and I want to know it. I want to see it, you know? And so I think that would be my advice to city managers, to department heads, to HR directors who are hiring and trying to attract and retain young professionals, is have that succession planning, have it, tangible, where you can actually come and say, hey, young professional, if you do all these great things, like we have a great opportunity for you, or you can maybe do this work, or you can propel this way. Maybe you can supervise in a couple of years. Like, have a plan, have that conversation.
Mm.
That's what will keep me, And like I told you earlier, I love a carrot. It works for me. I don't know if it works for others, but that's kind of my 2 cents there.
So much gold, JD. Thank you for your service to ILCMA, to local government. This has been a lot of fun. I have a feeling we're going to have some future conversations, dig a little deeper. For
Yeah.
now, that's the time we got, but you're a rock star, man. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Danny.
Well, welcome to our Lightning 5 segment. Today, I am privileged to have Megan Golden with me. She is the Director of Administrative Services and the Deputy Administrator for South Elgin, in addition to her presidency with the Legacy Project. Thank you, Megan, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm excited to get right to it because we want to make sure that everybody knows all about what the Legacy Project is, what it does, its mission, and all the good stuff. So we're going to get right into our Lightning 5 questions. So the first one is, when was the Legacy Project founded and what is its mission?
Yeah, the Legacy Project was founded in 2011, and its mission is really to support and empower women in local government through networking and leadership skills development. We're really here to help you succeed in local government.
And you're a fine example of that. 20 years in South Elgin, moving all the way up to where you're at today. So you're kind of walking the walk, I would say.
Well,
Talking
thank
the
you.
talk. All right, next one. Can you talk about the different ways that women can benefit professionally from membership with the Legacy Project?
Yeah, so we're really focused on career building, professional development, leadership growth, and networking with other women. We have a lunch series. We have a newsletter that goes out with some other information and tips. We have our annual conference, and other networking opportunities throughout the year.
And I was at the conference last year and I think it was sold out. It felt like it was sold out.
It was sold out, yes, for
And it
the
was
first.
full of energy and vibrance and really wonderful ladies who are just highly professional and making it in their world. And it was really, really inspiring to be able to be there. All right, next one. So, what makes the Legacy Project a unique professional development opportunity for its members?
Yes, I think Legacy is kind of a special place. It's an organization with a lot of heart. And I will say that when I started attending Legacy, we had the luncheon series in Geneva. I wasn't involved in founding it. I was just an assistant to community development director here in South Elgin at the time. And honestly, I was trying to get pregnant and it wasn't going particularly smoothly. So I was in that point where you're just kind of like, what am I doing here? South Elgin at the time, the highest women were either superintendent or assistant two levels. So it was just kind of like both personally and professionally, where am I going here? And so for me, it just became a great group to meet on a quarterly basis just to see other women in leadership positions. But also then when I did get pregnant and I was becoming a mom, kind of being like, how does all of this work and how am I supposed to balance all of that? So I would say, it's a group where we're here to help each other. And I would say a little bit more personal, a little bit more vulnerable than what you might see in other professional organizations, where we're going to be a little honest that sometimes it's hard, but also give you that kind of that hope that your heart needs to kind of remind yourself to keep going and that it's worth it.
I really love that. And, I did feel the support. And there was actually a couple of sessions where leaders got up and really were very vulnerable. And, having children in a profession is very challenging to try and find that balance. So you're being a great mom, but also making sure that you're continuing on your kind of journey forward, right? So that's awesome. I'm really glad that that support is available. And any of you out there who are listening, realize that that's there for you if you need it.
Yep.
All right, so now let's talk a little bit about the events and activities that the Legacy Project hosts each year.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have our legacy luncheons. We also have our annual conference and our seminar once a year. Coming up in 2026 on January 15th, we'll be in Evanston for our lunch series. We will be down in Normal before the ILCMA conference kicks off on February 11th. And then we'll have a virtual session on March 13th. And do mark your calendar for our annual conference, which is on May 15th. It did sell out last year, so please sign up right away as soon as those go.
Can people sign up right now for a
For
conference?
the conference, no, but you can register for our January session. But keep a lookout for that, because when you get it, you will want to sign up.
Okay, great. And we'll give the website at the end. Last thing, for those who aren't already involved, how can people get involved with Legacy Project?
Yes, we'd love for you to join as a member. It's a really low-cost membership. We do have a communications committee, a membership and outreach committee, an annual conference committee, and a professional development and network committee. We're always looking for volunteers for those, so we'd love to have you. We also have sponsorships for our annual conference, and as we get closer to the conference, we will be looking for people to join our board as well.
Okay, great. And then the end of your term is coming up in the near future.
The end of May, yeah. Yep.
All right. So anyone out there looking to be a president? No, actually, you probably have someone in line
We
then.
have a president-elect, yes, that we have in line, yes.
All right. So maybe looking at getting involved with the board or absolutely being a member or sponsors or many committees to get involved with as well. Can you go ahead and share the website link for
Yes,
everyone?
it's legacyprojectnow.org.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today on our Lightning 5 segment. And anyone out there wanting to learn more, please visit the website and we will see you next time. Thank you. So, as you hear, there are many great benefits to the Legacy Project and getting involved. So, if you are interested, you can reach out. Megan provided the website just to learn more. And then, JD, you offered really great insights. What a wonderful interview. Just to make us all think again, like, how are we structuring these professional positions? And is that speaking to people, to individuals who could be amazing leaders, but look at it and go, that's just not for me. So having an open mind and evolving the role in local government when it can be is definitely something to consider. So we have some events coming up I wanted to share with you. So the Illinois Financial Forecast Forum, that is on Thursday, January 8th. It's from 8 a.m. until 3:30 p.m. That's at NIU Naperville. And speaking of the Legacy Project, there is a Legacy Project brown bag lunch. That's Thursday, January 15th. 11:30 until 1:30 at the Evanston Ecology Center in Evanston. And finally, winter conference. So it's coming up before you know it. It's about to be January and it's, first week and a half of February. So you really want to get registered. I don't know if the hotel is booked yet. So definitely worth looking into right away. So just visit ILCMA.org and click on conferences. The conference is Wednesday, February 11th through Friday, February 13th. That's at the Marriott in Normal. So I'm wishing everyone a wonderful 2026 on behalf of myself and Danny. Wishing you prosperity and success and the reaching of all sorts of goals. So we will see you on the other side of 2026. Happy New Year.